May we introduce you to the Y-Bin. This is one of the most bare-bones e-readers we've seen since the 2013 Texture Beagle. It has 234 ppi with a 4.7-inch screen, 800 milliamp battery, 128 megabytes of RAM. It's also exceedingly lightweight at exactly 100 grams. It has no Wi-Fi, no Bluetooth, no audio, no glow light, and no touchscreen. It's also featuring a plastic sunken screen and bezel design with raised rubber physical page turn buttons, which are both a very nice feature to have, but also a little bit retro looking. Aside from the things it can't do, why don't we check out what it can do, starting with the UI. To be completely honest, there's not really much to go over here. It's using a UCOS operating system, which basically is just a bare bones operating system for microprocessors. It's not Android, it's not Linux, it's not anything. It's just a very, very simple OS, and you gotta love the button noises. So let's go over the buttons. You have left and right page turn buttons, you have up, down, left, and right directional buttons, an OK, a menu, and a \refresh. If you press back once, it will go back one stage. If you press and hold more than a second and a half, it'll trigger a refresh device-wide. You might be very tempted to touch the screen. It is not a touch screen at all. Our initial thoughts, because it was a plastic screen with a little bit of a dent, if you push it in, you would have thought it'd be like a resistive touch like a Nintendo DS or a signature pad at a local supermarket, but it is definitely not. It is just reliant on all of your physical buttons on the unit. You do have a file explorer, so if you do have things on here like PDFs, EPUBs, and images, you can go through all of them, and they do grant you this menu button. So if I want to have more options, I can press menu, I can search, delete, move it from internal memory to external memory, although this does not have an SD card. I'm not sure why they actually have that, or you can exit the menu. Reading is where this certainly shines. In fact, this device is so small, it's not only lighter than smartphones, it's way shorter, way thinner, and actually it's not as wide as some smartphones either. This is a bad example because the Xperia phones are notoriously thin, but this is really tiny. This is extremely small and it fits in one hand, and because each side has physical page turn buttons, you can go up or down. You don't have to reach across to get the back, but you can use it with either hand. You can go forward and you can go backwards just like that, and you can use the physical directional buttons at the bottom as well. Now you might be tempted to touch the screen and change things. You cannot. You'll have to press OK to get to a quick nav that does the font sizes, in which you can easily change the font sizes like that. It does take a while because remember, this only has 128 MB of RAM, so you have to be patient. Going to the menu, you actually have a lot more menu options than I would have thought. You have add bookmark, you can look through your bookmarks, table of content, add to favorites, you can go to page, you can search, there's the font size again, and you can alter the margins. The smaller the margins, the wider the text is going to display. You can go back here every time you do have to go back. You also have rotate screen, so it is obviously not automatic as it has no gyroscope or accelerometer or anything like that, and it does take a while, but you can go into a landscape mode like this. You have invert black and white text where you can flip the blacks and the whites. You can even do auto flip, which you can time it. So you can prop this up. If you're a quick reader, you can go 10, 20, 30 seconds, etc. Set link on doesn't do anything. Exit just goes out of the book. About book shows you some details. You also have refresh mode where you can set it to refresh every page 3 or 5. You cannot set it to never. Regardless of the fact you do have your own dedicated refresh button, you can't set it to never refresh. It's just not the type of device that will allow you to do that. Manga is a little bit stifling on this. This is definitely an ebook reader. Manga, even with its larger cells, and larger speech bubbles. You figure you would be able to read it. It is readable, but not without a little bit of eye strain because it's just a little bit small on the screen. It is decent, it can do it. The PDF files and the comic book files are very quick and snappy to our surprise. This is a very well responding unit and it doesn't ever seem to crash in all of our testing. Anything you throw at it, anything you put on here, regardless of the file size within the available storage on board, of course, seems to just display perfectly regardless of how many pages are in the PDF files themselves. But it's just, it all comes back to this being an ebook reader, not a PDF display. A word of warning to all you guys, do not buy this if your intent is to use PDFs. Reason being, it's smaller than both of my thumbs put together. This is a very, very small screen. It is unreadable. You can't really read anything whatsoever. You do have a zoom, but it's just a pain to work with. If you go here, you have a bunch of different levels. It zooms into a very small square. It's not the greatest experience. If you have PDFs that are single cell comics, for example, then it's fine. But things like reflow, it's just a terrible experience for PDFs. I would avoid it. It can run it, and to its credit, it does do it pretty quick. In fact, this PDF is our placeholder kind of standard that we use across all devices, and it is handling it quicker than some devices significantly more powerful than this. So there are some pros and cons, but for text-driven PDFs like this, it's not the greatest experience. The images themselves, the dense screen and the small screen PPI is actually not bad. The pictures themselves are very nice, which does lead us into our next section, which is pictures. I will say one thing, the pictures actually look really good. Why is that? Is because on some 13.3 inch devices, which are significantly bigger than this, more often than not, the PPI density, pixels per inch, is only around 212 to 230. This has the same density on a screen significantly smaller. Therefore, the pictures are actually very, very high quality, albeit they're small, and naturally lower definition material like pictures, images, etc., even videos look better on smaller screens because you can't really pick out all the inconsistencies, but the pictures are fairly nice. This is a very good experience if you have light pictures to throw on here. Remember, there's only 4 gigabytes of onboard storage, so you have to take that into consideration. You do have Sokoban, which I didn't know that was the actual name, of the game where basically you push all the squares into the little circles. You have that one, and you also have Jigsaw, where it just has a bunch of numbers and you move them around to put them and match them in order to the way you see it on the bottom corner, but you can't load in any additional games or anything like that. In terms of anything else, you only have calendar for apps, so you click on something like that and you can just go day by day and it tells you what day it is. Even though it has the days already listed there, it also has it at the top as you go along, and they have it French style where Monday's the start of the week and Sunday is the end of the week, as opposed to Sunday being the start. If you press OK, nothing happens. If you press M, which is the menu with a little box comes up, nothing happens. So you actually can't edit or deep dive into this to any extent, but it is nice that you have calendar to kind of check what day it is. The Y-Ben is lacking almost every conceivable feature e-readers have nowadays. There's no glow light, no audio, not even a touchscreen. But you know what? That's okay. Not every single device has to be loaded to the brim with bells and whistles. It is okay to have devices like this out there in the ether that bring a different approach to e-reading. The truth is that we need devices like this to keep the big boys on their toes, to have low price points, to have 4.7-inch simplistic screens with no distractions. This is a true pocket-friendly e-reader that's shorter and thinner than average smartphones. The Y-Ben may not be a multimedia Android tablet extraordinaire, but it is definitely dripping with character in its own right. For GoodEReader.com, this is Peter.